your religion's going to fall into line. And I don't know what you've been told. What were you created for? Because we get our answers from church, if you will. Some will tell you that you were created to worship God. Some will tell you you were created to serve God. Some say, well, you're created to glorify God. And then Jesus has an answer here too. But let me ask you this. If we go back to the first 3 chapters of Genesis, if we were created to worship God, sing praises to Him, and do it in such a manner where we were, well, then let me ask you, when is the first song written in Scripture? Do you realize it's not until Exodus 15? Not only after they got out of Egypt, but after God, if you will, then drowns the enemy army. Then Moses writes, the same God that says he's a bad speaker becomes the first songwriter in Scripture. How is that? If God said we were created for that, well, it sounds like somewhere we're lagging. How about if we were created to serve God? If we were created to serve God, wouldn't God have made man on the first day and then told him to get to work? Why is it we don't really see man work until after the fall? If we're created to glorify God, well then somewhere in that, where does God send us to start representing Him? But when God creates man, what's the next thing God does? He takes the day off. What do you think He made you? He didn't make you to serve Him, though serving Him is great. He didn't make you to worship Him, though worshiping Him is great. He didn't make you to glorify Him, though glorifying Him is great. He made you to love Him. And that's what we see in our text. He created you to love Him. The rest of the things are going to fall into suit. We have 2 children, adopted one is by biological, however you want to put that. They're both just as much a daughter as the other. They're both as opposite of each other as they could be, but they're both very much sisters. We certainly didn't have children so they would worship us, show us how valuable we were, how important we were. That would have been kind of sick and weird, wouldn't it? We didn't create them to serve. Boy, that would have been crazier. Imagine, I look at our first one especially, and I think looking at my wife and saying, oh, honey, if we had a bunch of these, think of what we could get done around the house. That would be crazy, and some of you know how crazy that would be. We didn't look and go, if we could just get a bunch of these around, the whole world could know who we are. We had children because we had so much love for each other and for God that we had to put it somewhere. So God, give us more. A place to dump our love, that they could take that love and then offer it back. And I'm an evil human being. And God's not. So I'm a poor reflection, but a reflection nonetheless. He did not create you to do anything but love Him. And in loving Him, you will serve Him. And in loving Him, you will glorify Him. And in loving Him, you will worship Him because He's worthy of those things. But first and foremost, you could put any of those things at the front, and what you have at that point is a car with no engine. Because the thing that'll drive you is love. And He puts it here in 3. Of course, we'll see it in 4 in Mark. But He tells us 3 things. And I got to tell you, this is a really healthy thing for me, and I need to do this more often than not. Ask myself, really, what would it be like to love you like this? With all. I got to be honest. In my walks this week, and you probably know that, I spend a lot of time walking the Word where I'm like asking, all right, Lord, it's one thing to be able to say, okay, I think we've got kind of the basic intellectual property of this to hand out, but in regards to my own life, my prayer, to be honest, has been, God, am I even loving you with most of these things? I'd really be happy at this moment if I hit most on these and I knew I was in the trajectory of going greater. And He goes, God, if you've given me everything, what can I give you in return? And God says, how about your love? And I say, can I make up the answer to that? And don't we do that? We can think we're doing so well because we've made up the ground rules on it. And instead, God makes really clear there's 3 things here. And this is really as far as I intend on going today. We'll develop the rest, in essence, next week as we start looking at how Jesus really goes off on the religious leaders who have clearly represented something antithetical to this. My prayer as we go through this quickly is that you would hear God speak to your heart as he's spoken to mine. Say, this is what I really want. Your name here. Let's worry about the rest later. Let's get this first.